Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I would like to call upon Professor Dr. Muhammad Nizam Muhammad Said, Director, Institute of Climate Change UKM, to deliver his welcoming remarks and introduce our speaker for today. Dengan segala hormatnya, please welcome Professor Nizam.
Dr. Choi, Head of Education, Unesco Jakarta, Professor Insinyur Dr. Martin Abdullah, Deputy Director, Institute of Climate Change UKM, academics, distinguished guests, students, ladies and gentlemen. Alhamdulillah, all praise to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for His blessing that we can gather here today in a public lecture organized by the UKM-YSD Chair in Climate Change, Institute of Climate Change UKM. On behalf of the UKM, I would like to take this opportunity to welcome our distinguished speaker, Dr. Choi, to Malaysia and in particular to the UKM. Dr. Choi has visited Malaysia quite a number of times, and she had also been in UKM a few years ago, if I'm not mistaken, in 2016 when we organized the SEEDS workshop, Small Island Development States, in 2016. And I guess she is already familiar with various popular places in Kuala Lumpur. I would like also to welcome all our guests to UKM who come from various agencies and organizations. I can see Dr. Samson from IPGM and various agencies as well. And to join us for this lecture today, thank you for your support and participation. Ladies and gentlemen, last Friday on November 29, we were saddened by the loss of our shareholder, UKM-YSD Chair in Climate Change and former Director of Institute of Climate Change, Professor Dr. Sharifah Mastura said Abdullah due to cancer. Her passing is a great loss for IPI and UKM. So before we further, let us recite the Al-Fatiha and pray that the soul will receive blessing from Allah and may Allah elevate a status among the guided people. Al-Fatiha. Ladies and gentlemen, let me briefly introduce about this public lecture session. The UKM-YSD public lecture is one of the important events organized by the UKM-YSD Chair in Climate Change with speakers of various backgrounds that are related to climate change. For your information, the chair is managed by the Institute of Climate Change UKM, which was established in 2010 with objective of establishment is to continue current efforts in addressing local and global climate change issues. The chair provides a platform and leadership for coordinated efforts and resources in climate research and related issues, particularly in the country and in the Southeast Asia region. Now, allow me to introduce our speaker of today's public lecture, Dr. Choi, who is going to talk on a very interesting topic that is related to her work at UNESCO entitled UNESCO Climate Change Education for Sustainable Development. Finally, in light of the above, I would like to express my sincere thanks again to Dr. Choi for her willingness to deliver this public lecture, to the delegates and guests coming from various agencies and organizations for their support towards this event, and my deepest appreciation also goes to the organizing committee for their dedication and commitment to the success of this event today. I believe through this activity, we will be able to develop strong networks and relationships for enhancing future research activities and collaborations. I hope you will find this event as a significant opportunity for expanding your knowledge horizons. With that, Dr. Choi, the floor is all yours. Please welcome.
Very good morning to all of you. I can see some of you are very familiar, so I'm very pleased to be here, and it's my honor to be here today. I did not prepare a very formal speech because I will jump into the presentation, but at the same time I saw my presentation time is quite considerably long, so rather than very boring the presentation, I want to go for some keys for your awakening. Anyway, once again, thank you so much for having me. When I was heard about this request, I was wondering how much I can contribute to your time, especially regarding this issue. But because most of you must be university and very intellectual groups, so I was wondering, it's gonna be okay. But at the same time, I was thinking it might be a good chance to let you reflect your experience, whether it is on a track, especially in consideration of the international trend and the changes in this field. That's why I was thinking, okay, it's going to be a really precious chance for both the groups, including me, so UNESCO and the UKM as well. All right, then before I start my presentation, thank you so much for having me, UKM, and especially Dr. Nizam. It's really appreciated, especially on behalf of UNESCO, for his contribution and the UKM's contribution to climate change education, because we have been working for this field over the last, I think, 5 years, right? So it is really cooperative work for this field, climate change education. I expected the presentation file here, but everywhere, and probably what would be the best way? Fortunately, I always keep my youth, as you can see my name, me young, always me young, so I always keep my spirit, but physical age is not there, so I cannot read it. If it is quite far, that is really good. I can see that. So let me see in this way. All right. Before I started, okay. Public lecturing is not many chances for UNESCO officer, especially UN officer. We organize a lot of international workshops and trainings, but not everyday lecturing things like you. But whenever I was invited by academic people, one of the questions is, how can I work for UN? How can I work with the UN? Or sometimes very young people, especially postgraduate people, is how can I be a UN staff? That is one of the very common questions. So I was thinking, why don't I take a chance to provide you some information? So when you see presentation table of contents over there, first one is I'm going to provide you some information about UN, United Nations. Second one is, of course, as a UN agency, what UNESCO is and what we are doing. And the third one is, as all you know better than me, the SDGs. So 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and how it is linked with the UNESCO, and how it is linked with education. Especially the last one is linked with climate change. So what UNESCO has been doing for climate change education, that would be the last part. So you can have your question anytime during my presentation. I would love to have it, and I will do my best to. Okay, and then actually, I was thinking this one. I don't know how many people here know that so when UNESCO, the UN was founded, actually it's quite a long history. We have been working since 1945. So that time, it was just after Second World War. So the bottom line is peace. You will hear a lot of issues and conflicts all over the world. But the United Nations was founded just after the Second World War by only 51 countries. Now we have 193 members. So it has been expanded, and their working area has been, have been expanded, and the mission has been strengthened. So probably we can talk about this one. I will go back to the first slide because I have one question. Please do not be embarrassed, even you don't know how many. But people think, oh, UNESCO, oh, UNICEF, oh, WHO. That kind of agencies are quite familiar with you. But is there anybody know how many UN agencies now? Oh, you have not have any hard copy of a presentation, right? So there is no hint. So how many? Oh, don't be shy. You always ask for your students. Okay, how many? Five. And then it's okay. It's not exact number, but very close to one. There is a prize. I brought it, even if it's heavy. How many will be? Total of UN agencies under the United Nations. Our headquarters is in New York, but we have a lot. So, okay, let's begin. How many? 5. So it should be less or more, right? So how many? Ibu? 10. And then Ibu? Here is the same. It's a Miss Ibu. I'm based in Jakarta, so I have very, very limited bahasa, but always to respect the ladies, I always call Ibu, but I don't know here. So anyway, 5, 10. Unfortunately, it's quite far from the exact number, so please. 15. And then?
20.
Who said 20? And then anyone have more? 50. 50, who said that? Okay, 50. So it is jumped up from 20, 50. Last meeting?
25.
25? Okay. It's more than 50. Can you see? Next one. How much is the summer? Probably, actually even myself, before this presentation, I knew that it's more than 50, but I didn't sum up exactly. Probably it's a 54 or 3. So, you should come. Oh, I have yeah. I will show you, but you will have later. So there is a tumbler, and then there is a UNESCO mark. So UNESCO logo on it. Okay, so you have one. Don't sleep, there is another one. Don't sleep. Okay, so this one is the actually United Nations system. So when you see the UN names, you just only UNESCO, UNICEF, WHO like that. But actually, United Nations have 5 different categories. So this is all about it, but even myself, I don't memorize it. So when I see, I know it, but I don't do that. So unfortunately, this is too small. If somebody is very close to the presentation screen, you can see that this is a whole about United Nations system. So when I showed you, look at that. There is a different category. Here is another question. Here is another question. See, Chief Executive Board for Coordination, funded programs, specialized agencies, regional commissions, UN research and training institution, jointly financed bodies, related organizations, other entities, where UNESCO is belong to. Which category?
Research Training Institute.
Another tumbler, beautiful, in pink and little blue.
Research Training Institute.
Okay, where, okay.
UN Research and Training Institution.
So you go for number 5, okay. And then, Miss? Number 4? And then, who said the number 3? You said the number 3? Okay. The tumbler goes to number 3. Specialized agencies. Why specialized agencies? Specialized agencies is quite unique. Like for example, if you see number 2, funded programs. Do you know UNEP, right? As mostly environmental issues, environmental research and studies. You must know the UNEP, United Nations Environment Program. They belong to number 2. UNICEF belong to number 2. UNESCO, number 3. What is the differences? Funded programs, they have to do fundraising by themselves. Specialized agencies, we rely on membership status sponsorship. So we call it membership fees. So when membership countries, we call it member state. State provided like a yearly fees. So it's simply our salary comes from the membership fees. But the fund programs, agencies, they do fundraising and their salary comes from there. Of course, UNESCO do fundraising as well. Even myself, I do fundraising and I have a big scalable fund for countries. So that is the differences. But anyway, it's not important, but it's necessary if you wanted to make a linkage between UN strategies and your research, because I'm pretty sure that academia focus cannot be away from the international trend influenced by UN strategies, especially recent policies. Okay, let me see. So that was the United Nations system. I'm pretty sure that the organizer will share all of your PPTs so you can see it later. So, next one is what is UNESCO. I told you, we are specialized agency and a little bit more than 70 years. You remember that just after Second World War, United Nations was founded, and then UNESCO is just after that. So there are so many UN agencies, but UNESCO is one of the longest historical UN agency. And then it's, when you see our UNESCO Constitution is based on the peace. So you can see the influence from that. If I may read the second paragraph, it might be very helpful what kind of things we are doing. UNESCO was established on November 4th, 1946 as a specialized agency of the UN. And we seek the build peace. So we are trying to build peace. So peace building is very important. But peace building is not just peace itself, it is linked with many different fields. So that's why next paragraph says that through international cooperation in education, the sciences, and the culture. So you can see the UNESCO name, United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. Nowadays, there is information and communication, the IC, and then also the social human resources. So we have a lot of varieties, but basically there are education, science, culture. You might hear a lot of the UNESCO, the cultural heritage, those kind of things. So we work for many different sectors. So I mentioned very briefly UNESCO Constitution. Since war begins the minds of men and women, it is in the minds of men and women that defenses of peace must be constructed. So the very, very basic foundation is mind of men and women. That's the UNESCO does. Because like for example, climate change education, when you look at the foundation of it, it's mind of men and women. Because when there is a climate change, it disturbs many, many things, economically, physically, or even personal life. So that is the disturbing the mind of peace. So that kind of things are our foundational backbone of UNESCO. UNESCO members, I told you, so we have currently 193 members, and we gather every year around November time. So it was just finished. So in the headquarters, all of the membership states are gathering, and then we call the general conference. I will tell you later, but this year UNESCO Jakarta office had some presentation about Malaysia Trusting Fund. And one of the appreciated project was climate change education, especially sponsored by the Malaysian government. Okay, so UNESCO field offices. People are thinking very easily the hierarchy, the organization, like a headquarters there, field office there, but the UN, all of the organizations are in parallel. So we have a headquarters in Paris, and then field offices in a different the continent, and we call it national office in a country level scope. Cluster office, like what I'm doing, is the several countries gathering office, and then liaison office for the just coordinator, and then regional bureau, like Jakarta office, regional bureau for Asia and the Pacific. But some of the offices have two different functions. And then, okay, that is too far. Okay, that is our field office's information. The where UNESCO Jakarta office. Actually, when Dr. Nizam was introduced me, I have been working for UNESCO nearly 10 years, but not only in Jakarta. I'm the office fixed term. So actually, before current position in Jakarta, I was in Africa. And then before that, I was in Jakarta. Oh, then when I came back, it's the same position now. It was different, but by accident, there was a position so I applied for, so I came back to Asia. So that is the different matter, but UNESCO Jakarta office is based in Jakarta. And many people, oh, what is it? So I made it very briefly. UNESCO Jakarta has two functions. One is the Regional Bureau for Science in Asia and the Pacific. The other one is the Cluster Office, serving, we call serve, the membership state, especially 5 countries, Brunei Darussalam, Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines, and the Timor-Leste. So we bundled these 5 countries. So that's why we call it cluster office. Especially 5 cluster offices, I'm in charge of education. But when there is any intersectoral field between education and science, like climate change education, disaster risk reduction education, education for sustainable development, we work together. So that's why I became known, Dr. Nizam, for climate change education for SID, S-I-D-S. So for the Pacific countries, Tonga, Fiji, Tuvalu, etc. So now you know that what is the UN, what is the UNESCO, what is the UNESCO Jakarta office. Then we can move on to 17 SDGs because it is very linked with our UNESCO climate change education. Before this one, anyone has a question about UN and the UNESCO and the UNESCO Jakarta office? You might not be interested in the whole UN system, but you might be interested in UNESCO Jakarta office because we work for many different climate change issues regarding science sector and the education sector. Okay, you might need a coffee. All right, then let me move on. So 17 SDGs. I would not stress on because you must be known as much as I am as an academic person. And then what is the SDG 4? So mostly when we talk about SDG 4, the SDG 4, we call it quality education. It's when we make it very short because of the core essence for the SDG 4. When you see SDG 4, to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. So this one is SDG 4 core concept and for action. But anybody knows that SDG 4 is different from MDGs? Because education was in the Millennium Goals as well, as you remember, right? So what is different? What has been changing? Another tumbler. Even I can give you a choice. Pink or blue, which one? So anybody? What is different from previous education stressed by MDGs and now SDGs? What is different? The answer is in the line. We knew that it's very important, but never ever in the front line of MDG. What is it? Anybody? So what do you say that in your lecturing if a student does not raise your hand? Please teach me. Oh yes, please.
I'm just guessing. It's about the idea of education for all.
Education for all. That's a good suggestion, but SDG, have you ever heard of Education for All, EFA? EFA has been almost 30 years, so it's not new. And then, don't worry, you will have a chance for other almost 45 minutes we have to go for. So anybody? Oh, there is the answer in the line. Okay, I will speed up. Oh, you want to do that? No? Okay. There is a one lifelong. After this presentation, ask Mr. Google. What is it? What was the MDGs? There was no dead word. Even we knew it is very important, lifelong. And then when you see the target under the SDG 4, there is a target. We are going to move in there. And then even ICT education has a week. What's going on? So lifelong education came up in front line. So that is very, very different from previous one. Then somebody might hear about Education 2030 Framework for Action. If you are not familiar with this one, you have to reflect your the practice and the knowledge, because this is SDG 4 in line with UNESCO suggestion. But before the SDG 4, not only SDG 4, all 17 was established by United Nations. Already UNESCO was organized international consensus, and then we made the Education 2030 Framework for Action. And then this Education 2030 Framework for Action was accepted by the United Nations as the SDG 4. So you can see the process of UN some action establishment. It doesn't come up just at once. There is a process for that. And then this is education action for 5 cluster countries of UNESCO Jakarta office. I have already distributed a handout. Have you got it? If you have not got it, you can ask later on. UNESCO, for your information, UNESCO works every 6 years cycle, and then 6 years cycle split into 3 periods, and then these 2 years will be the last 6 years cycle. So actually currently UNESCO has a 6 year cycle since 2014, and it will be finished by 2021. So this one is over the next 2 years, UNESCO Education Unit will work on it. So when you look over, if there is any your interest, please feel free to contact with me. I will not read all of the things, because you might be interested only in climate change education from this presentation. But please be aware of that. Your working area is not isolated one. It's intertwined with education, especially for many different international agreements. Another case. I should go back. Anyway, have you ever chance to look over SDG 4 targets very carefully? Do you do that? I don't know. I don't know. Some of you. Do you remember how many targets over there? So many, right? How many? Actually, when you see not only SDG 4, which SDG number is most your favorite one? Probably climate change, that one. But anyway, this SDG 4, quality education, has thematic indicators and global indicators. So can you imagine how many indicators would be there? Okay, another BD? How many? Miss, how many do you expect? Actually, because you are working in education, it's not isolated SDG regarding your field. So, okay, how many? Young lady? Can I call you a young lady? Because my 60s is coming very soon, so I can call you young lady. How many? Indicators. Why indicators are important? Because when you do action, how do you know? You have to measure, right? So these SDGs have indicators. Why indicators are more important for the country? Because your country should report every year. Even your Ministry of Education report the SDG for achievement based on this indicator. So that's why indicator is important. even you might not be aware of it. So how many? 17. Any? I will give you, okay. 7. Raise up the numbers. Raise up. Raise. 50? Okay. But 50, but it's close to more than 5 or 10. Look here. 43 thematic indicators and including 11 global indicators. So who was the closest one? The best one, 15, and then 17, and then one more person, 7. So 7 is the most one. So you will get which color you want it. You can come to me later on. It's nearly done. Nearly run out of tumbler. Why I'm talking about target 4.7? Can you see? I made it in a red circle. I don't know how many people are be aware of target 4.7 is for climate change. Because target 4.1, when you look over it's a sub-target. When you see the 4.7.1, can you see the global citizenship, education, and the education for sustainable development? It doesn't say exactly climate change education, but UNESCO goes through ESD, Education for Sustainable Development. So we work for climate change education, but as part of ESD. That is the reason I'm showing you. So indicators of target 4.7 is as seen in the screen. So there are indicators, this is not only for SDG 4. When you go back to your research room, if you look at your interested SDGs, always there is a thematic and a global one. So global one is as a global, but mostly it's the specific areas. And then thematic is more statistical goals. So at your country, and the regional, and then international. Then actually indicative strategies of a target 4.7. This is the indicators. And then this is your country needed to achieve it. Actually 2 years ago in Bangkok, all of Asia and the Pacific countries were gathered, especially from the Ministry of Education. And then we reported target 4.7's achievement in your country. So every year it is a little bit different because there are too many indicators, 11 indicators on the SDG 4. So this year we did it in the October, and it was a 4.3, another one. That is the early childhood care and the education. But 4.7 was 2 years ago. But every year your country should report through UNESCO. Why? Because UNESCO has been designated for SDG 4. Okay, so this is the implementation of SDG 4.7 in Asia and the Pacific, which is included climate change education. I don't know how much you can look at it. When I see, this is the green part is feasible. And then very distinctly in red part is not feasible at all. And then mostly you can see already in blue, already being implemented. So it means that already implemented or feasible, but some of them are still not. So even this year, there was the high level of a forum, HLF. That is the highest SDG level in New York. And they reported SDG 4.7 should be gone too far. So there are many things we have to do. Still not there. That is the reality. This is based on the All Asia and the Pacific countries report. So this is the actual statistical data result. And then let's move on to Southeast Asia. But before I move into, is there any question on SDG 4 or SDG 4.7? Okay. Oh yes, please, ma'am.
Just a quick question.
Yes,
You
please.
mentioned about not being some of it not feasible, right? What are the examples of this?
For example, like a Southeast Asia, because of my position, actually UN officer is a diplomatic position. What does it mean? We don't mention the one country specifically, so I cannot give you the country's name, but I can tell you the Southeast Asian countries especially, it's a huge and wide range of achievement of SDG 4 and SDG 4.7. Even one amongst my 5 responsible countries for education, one country, even they have not started any education strategy for SDG 4.7. They do not have it. They are very busy with other political matters. However, the other country has clear national framework, and even this year they submitted national framework one. But that is amongst our 5 closed countries. But officially, as of this year May, only one out of 10 ASEAN countries submitted official national framework for SDG 4. What does it mean? Even 9 out of 10 ASEAN countries have not submitted official endorsement national framework. That means your parliament, your president should sign on it. That is not there yet. So everybody talks about climate change education because we need to address climate change. But as you can see from the yesterday, COP25 starting the announcement, still there is no political or high level of countries' signature on it. That is the reality. That's why probably we are here today. Is that enough for that?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's move on then. Then we are in Southeast Asia. I have been working for Asia almost 20 years now from my the researcher position. And then Southeast Asia is a really interesting area. And then also one of the victim areas for climate change, right? So this map shows the annual flood level, and especially in 2015. I internationally made the map, the magnified the Malaysia. As you can see, many areas in the coastline are expected to be immersed by this sea level rising, and then also because of that, there will be the flood one. But this kind of thing, so you might be the more and the better than me. Especially here, so Malaysia. Actually, I have never made a long slide. I think the slide was 40 or 30 something. And then so I was thinking how I can make it because I have never made such a long slide. And then probably it is better to put some kind of Malaysia-related data. And I said, actually, if it becomes true, it would be really disaster, I think. So it's better to start now, but it's up to the political decision and also the field action. So let's move on to the major point, climate change education. This is I just the collected from our the UNESCO the general slide because we have some the global guideline from the Paris. And then this one is, as I told you, UNESCO as the lead agents for education for sustainable development, ESD. We go through the climate change education, CC. Let me call it from now on CC. CC goes through the ESD. There is a reason, because the part of the action is a really common ground. Because some time ago, but nowadays there is some informal direction. When I started the ESD, it was 20 years ago, and then that time, of course, there was no clear boundary about ESD and the environmental education, EE. Have you ever heard of environmental education? So there are 30 years ago, there was the movement for environmental education. And then later on, 20 years ago, the ESD was come up in the international, the academic, the group. And then there was a huge debate in what is ESD, what is the boundary. And then now, climate change education we do as a part of the ESD, but there are arguments that CC should be separated from ESD. But I personally think that it's a useless argumentation. We need action rather than consultation. So that is my personal one, but this is the UNESCO direction. So what is the ESD then? Why so UNESCO goes CCE through the ESD? So this is our definition. It's empowerment to people. That is the key word for that. Then, cool. So this one is the ESD in responding to the global challenges linked with the disaster risk. Actually, ESD embraces many different environmental and disaster issues. So mostly it is about action, it is about raising awareness, because it cannot be separated each other. So this is the one of the important slide, because you can see 5 priority action areas of GAP. We call it GAP, it's a Global Action Program. So when there is the ESD, UNESCO decided, okay, let's focus on 5 priority action areas. So if you want to work with UNESCO, you need to reflect these 5 priorities. You might think, oh, there is another very urgent action, we need it, we know it. But this is based on our membership state consultation, and we agreed to go for 5 priority action areas first. So you can see from the high level and to the ground level. So advancing policy, and the transforming the learning and the training environments, building capacity of educators and the trainers, empowering and mobilizing youth, accelerating sustainable solutions at a local level. I'm personally very interested in 2 parts, advancing policy and the empowering and the mobilizing youth. Because youth is the one of the action empowerment group. They have their awareness is already some certain level, and then they have some empowerment in action. But at the same time, if you don't have a policy support, it is very difficult. So some people say, politics. But politics makes the policy and the strategies, even the regulation and the law. So you really need their support. Okay, so then what we are doing? UNESCO works on CC, advocacy. So as I told you, we have a lot of the policy level, high level of meetings for advocacy for that. As I told you, yesterday was a starting date of COP25. And then the UN Secretary General announced for its urgency to all of the global the policy level people to join in it. So we have a dialogue on action for climate empowerment. It's to support that one. And then especially UN has a UN Alliance Action for Climate Empowerment. So we call it ACE. You might hear already. And then especially UNESCO really promotes policy guidance, knowledge production, and the exchange. So we have a lot of workshops and trainings for exchanging knowledge and skills, because climate change matter is a really politically, economically divided area. Even I would not explain about it, you know better than me. Because some countries have advantage already, and they influence to climate change. Even their advanced economic level, they produce a lot of things already cause the climate change. And then they ask to not advanced or less developed countries to follow them. So politically divided, and then economically divided. But this case, we needed to exchange, and then to make a commonality, and also some kind of empathy with each other. So there are many different exchange programs, and then if UKM is interested in it, you might work with UNESCO. And then next one is country support and partnership. One of the important things is partnership. And I really appreciate Malaysia Trustee Fund, which is nearly the end. The Malaysian Trust Fund bottom line and is promoting area is South-South cooperation. And that is very important for climate change education field, because the teachers and academians and political people, when they have a consensus in working together for climate change, there is the action. So that is very important for that. Especially Asian countries is very active for education, and UNESCO has some network, we call it UNESCO Associated Schools Project Network, and we call it SPNet, so we can mobilize it. Next one is the building capacities, and this one is a global level. I just put them in it, because if you want to learn about it, once again, ask Mr. Google. And somebody might ask, why not Miss Google? If you are a gentleman, you can call it Miss Google. Let's make a fair. But anyway, the Costa Rica, Kenya, Vietnam, the Cook Island, and then see the small island development state. So there are many projects UNESCO has been doing, and you can see the Southeast Asian example, Vietnam, and this small island one, Malaysia has been supported for that as well. Okay, so this one. Okay, so mobilizing and supporting partners. That is, UNESCO has 90 key partners globally. And then, especially Asia is very, very active for them. Because normally the education culture, the education has been taken as the key driven tool for climate change education. So that is the one of the strengths of Asian education, I think. And please refer to the partner network. And if when you see the partners, there are many institute, research center, and even universities. So you can might be interested. This is ESG achievement 2015 to 28. And I would not just go for numbers. I just wanted to show this slide, how much internationally there are so many achievements. And then Southeast Asia, how it goes to. Actually, this one, 1, 2, 3, 4, the bullet points, I extracted from Asia Pacific SDG 4, the achievement report. So what is the weakness in Asia, especially Southeast Asia? Still there is the common acceptance. Government ownership is still not there. So government knows it, but leading and ownership is still weak. And ESD is not through the whole approach. Actually, we always say that climate change education should be approached, within a whole holistic manner. But vice versa, it became a weakness as well. So it's not there. And SDG 4.7, global targets and indicators are not clear. Sometimes when you see the statistics, like, you need to achieve 50 out of 100 people, is much clear. But raising awareness, that is not clear, right? So it's not clear. And the budget constraint, probably Malaysia has these difficulties in education too, but it's worldwide, not only Malaysia. And the budget constraint is really one of the problems because money is not all, but still it is important. Okay, so I'm moving into actual practice, which you might be interested in. Would you excuse me, because recently I have never talked to such a long time, so let me have some water. But I'm a little bit worried because I'm talking, nobody has a question. Am I making you to be bored? It's okay? Okay. This practice actually started in Indonesia when I worked some time ago. It was 2010. Yeah, when I started at Unesco, especially Jakarta office, and then I moved into Africa and came back. I told you. That time, one day I was sitting in my office, and then I was thinking, how can I do fundraising for Indonesia and then as the Southeast Asia, and then I was thinking climate change. Because before I moved into Indonesia for a UNESCO Jakarta office for Asia and the Pacific, I was working in an international policy research center, but it was an environmental center, which was funded by Japanese government just after Kyoto Protocol. You know that the Kyoto Protocol was led by Japanese government in 1970. Yeah, and then it was endorsed 1970 or 8. Then I became the mentor there. So that center was all about climate change. So there was as I remember, there was a 7 project team in this research center, policy team, education team, forest team, water team. Every team was linked with climate change. So my team, education team, was working for climate change education. So I was very familiar with this one. But that time, 10 years ago, even UNESCO was not familiar or not active as much as now. And then I was thinking green school, I just make a simply green school action project because I was thinking climate change should be in action. Then how we can make a local case. So I would not touch up on all of the details, but when you see this one, you can see the goal, the environmentally sensitive school. And then many people asked me once it was very successful, Why Banjarmasin? Banjarmasin is the South Kalimantan, you know that. There is a South Kalimantan capital city, name is Banjarmasin. Then I started there because that time Banjarmasin was one of the poor cities in Indonesia because of the surrounding environment. And then they have a rainy, actually not rainy, dry season and then dry season and the rainy season. So dry season, many of the students just followed their family and to go to the forest in Kalimantan. And then cut the trees and then they make a field. So fire, they call it some shifting farming family, they call it, but I don't know how you can call in Malaysia. So I was thinking how we can educate them. So rather than focusing their father and the mother, I was thinking maybe students. So when they come back in rainy season at school, I can have some the education for their action. That was a very small starting point. And then, rather than words, I just prepared the photo. So this is I took the photo. So please excuse me, it's not professional. But that is, as you can see, the Banjarmasin is at the end of history, the area. So big river goes through the city, and then the river is whole over their life. And then as you can see in the end of the river, there are a lot of cutting trees. You can see that, and then they sell it. So it's a huge industry for them. Nowadays it's decreased, but still there. So you can see, and also you can see the whole of garages and all of the dirty things together. So that is their life. And then please be aware that this project helped a lot in cooperation with the Ministry of Education and also the city mayor. City mayor was really dedicated to this project. And then later on, this project introduced even in Central Asia, Uzbekistan, even Zimbabwe in Africa. So it was very successful. But before that, this project became national program. It started with a local project, but it became a national program. So it was, emotionally, I really attached this project. But at the same time, the whole of the teachers were really proud of it. But there is a different points. This one. How this project was made sustainable. Actually, this year, this one was started in 2012. It's quite a long time ago. And then recently, when I came back to Jakarta, I forgot. And then I was invited by Jakarta University somewhere, and then had a presentation. And then one student asked me the question, do you know what, I came from Banjarmasin, but he didn't know that project was initiated by Jakarta office, especially from under my supervision. Oh, but I'm coming from Banjarmasin city, and our city is very clean now because of the green school project. Blah, blah. I was so happy because it means sustainable. Why? As you can see, all they are teachers. I provided the teacher trainings, but not the knowledge or those kind of things. I taught and I guided all of our team. Let's teach teachers to develop their capacity to develop a proposal. So climate change proposal by themselves. So we brought the teachers at the beginning of the project, and then we taught their capacity in developing their school project. So how the budget can be, how the project component will be, how many students they are aiming to, and how they can evaluate the impact at the end of that. All of the things that we taught it was so difficult, honestly. It was painstaking. And from time to time, I regret why I started it. It was so difficult. And then they did it. So at the end of that, last the photo, the right bottom photo, even they organized by themselves for Teachers Association. So still going on. So it's fantastic. And then I want to show this photo with the UNESCO Pride. So the project left top, what is it? That is actually solar and wind panel, because in Banjarmasin, if you go for only solar panel, it's not enough to generate power, because many of the rainy season. So we decided solar and wind power panel, and then we are located in the piloting schools. And then what happened? Their solar panel provides electricity to run their school ICT room, and also the school classroom have a right side. Can you see the plug in? And then the below left part, the students have a LED light. So one school, one student, we gave the LED light, and then when they come to school, it's the rechargeable. It's not using for school classroom. We gave it, and they plug it in, and then whole day it's recharging. So when they go back home, we gave it to him or her. Why? We thought we was trying to teach them how much renewable energy is important, why we are doing it under the climate change education concept. And then there was a very unexpected impact. When they brought it, of course, they use it for night study or homework, but sometimes their parents took it. Right side, the mother is using for night voting for something. So when they did not come to school, what happened? Their parents forced the students, go to school, recharge it, bring it back, LCD. So it was an unexpected story as well. So all of this is just one of climate change education project which we have been doing. So another one is, I was thinking it's too long, and then now I'm worried about the time. And then another story, the recycling, that one is very common. Probably it's very familiar for you. But have you ever opened a student bank account for each one at school? Probably not many schools. So this project, one of the climate change education project, under Green School project, the teacher organized every, I don't remember whether it was once a week or once a month, probably once a month, because the local bank came to the school. So each student brought their, collected, recycled that one, and the weight, measured the weight, and then that day school called for bank, the bank officer with their, what is the bank statement, and also the private sector, private company to buy this kind of thing. And then in that place, they show the money that they put into the personal student bank account. So that school became the second award of school saving competition in that year. So it was very, very useful. The bottom line is sorry, not bottom line, the photos in the below. That is for the, what is that? The organic fertilizer, they made it. Banjarmasin had very, still have a very unique environment. Even in school, yard, have many lakes. It's very swampy area. So it means that there are a lot of plants, swampy plants. So they collected it, and then they made this kind of organic fertilizer, and then they sold that. Once again, they have a student bank account for each one, and then they saved it. So it's very small differences, but it promotes and motivates climate education more in a practical way, if I evaluate it. Okay, let me start it. And then this one became the Indonesia's national program, because there is a national program already. They call it Adwiata program, and then we combined it with this national program. So still going on with the national budget. So UNESCO's project, Green Schools project, was finished some time ago, but still it is running by local schools and the government. Okay, so let's move on to next one. This is a more global way. UNESCO Sandwich project. It's, as you can see from the title, it is Coastline Climate Change Education One. His story is quite long, since the 1990s, but it has spread out through the schools and the local community. So you can see from the photos, it's mostly a coastline, which is very important, because nowadays there are so many problems in the coastline. It's not only sea level one, but it's environmental issue. And then this one is in Asia, the Sandwich program, which is in where the projects are running. And then I just intentionally put this one. This one is the outputs working with UKM, and especially thanks to Dr. Nizam, we successfully completed this seed project targeting the Pacific, the countries, and especially it was for teachers training. So this output was for teachers training modules. And then it was so joyful to work with KM and the Pacific country. Especially their character is so bright. So even they made some songs for that, but you know the characters of Pacific countries is really positive, but they are threatened by sea level rising. So they were very, very serious. Even I remember the Tonga, the ministries, they have a specific ministries for climate change. So it is a really serious political level decision. I don't think your country has a separated climate change ministry, not yet. But I was heard that, yeah, it's a consultation, and then it's in the process of making some political decision and concrete agency. Okay, so I'm pretty sure that this would be the last one. Oh, yeah, please be happy. This is the second last slide for that. There are so many actions we should do, but I was thinking what kind of suggestion I could do in front of very high level and high quality academia people today. And then probably you might think about climate change education as part of school curriculum. It cannot be separate subject or separate area. It should be as part of the school curriculum, and desirably at the low level of grade, because you know that their awareness and especially thinking way, and then logical thinking way construction in mind frame would be from the early stage. Have you ever heard the significance life experience? Have you ever heard? It's very academic language, if I remember from Dr. degree time. Significant life experience is some kind of very impacted experience for learners. And then it is more affected to lower level of grade. So when you think about we call it SLE in the education academic research area, this one is very important for climate change education, because when you become older, you know it. Oh, I shouldn't do this one. it is very important not to produce any more CO2 or those kind of things. You know it, but action is not as much as young people. Young people are really naive, and especially they are pure mind when we teach them. But someday they will be adults. So this kind of things so we needed to try. But if you go for, not as a part of the school curriculum, it's difficult. And also teachers would not like it. If you are going for separate, it would be a higher possibility in failing. From my home country in Korea, South Korea, we tried 25 or 30 years ago, environmental education independent subject, nearly failed. Rather than, after that, we integrated into whole school curriculum. So even mathematics, there is a way to teach it. Even music, even art, there is the integrated points. So that might be, think about even in university, rather than developing and changing the curriculum, maybe university can think about it as part of a curriculum. I worked for Japanese universities for, what is that? It's the sharing master degree program for climate change. I think nearly 10 years ago already. That time, one of the points was amongst China, Korea, Japan, we should go for integrating climate change into master degree. That was one of the things. And then next one is I already stressed North-South and the South-South cooperation. Because climate change is not happening in one country. If one country has a problem, the adjacent countries having the same problem. We are one. It's one world, one Asia, one Southeast Asia. We are one. So it should be cooperation. So that is very important, especially for that, political academia should be aware of it. And then especially in case of Malaysia, leadership and accountability as one of the ASEAN countries. And then having the country having power. So it should be. That is my suggestion. And the last slide is I just want to close this presentation with UN Secretary General, the word. Okay, what he said that climate disruption is happening now, and it is happening to all of us. We are in a battle for our lives, but it is a battle we can win. So he was very sure that we should be win. I think when he said we can win, means we have to try to win. That is my understanding. Thank you so much for listening to me. And this is a long lecturing, and then I feel very fulfillment because I made it for a long lecturing for the first time, because normally it's around 30 minutes. So I hope you enjoyed it, and then I would be very happy to have any questions. I will do my best. Thank you.